And what's he expecting you to do tonight then? I questioned her. Oh, I don't know, she replied sadly. Maybe go outside with some guy or something. I just don't know. Why don't we do that now, Cindy? She looked up at me with a look of disappointment, distrust, horror even. I'm not sure how to describe it. I thought, that is, I hoped that. Don't worry, I interrupted her. You're safe enough with me, and that bugger of a husband of yours will think you're obeying him. Reluctantly, she allowed herself to be led to the exit, no doubt still not sure that she could trust me. I caught Jerry's eye as we went out, and he gave me a look of surprise. I'd explain to him later. Finding my car, we leaned up against it, and I told her to take her time and settle down again, handing her my handkerchief to wipe her eyes. Thanks, Rich, she mumbled. It was all the thanks that I needed. Soon enough, Cindy leant up against me, and I automatically put my arms around her. Much, I convinced myself, as I would an upset child. We stood there holding on to one another for some time, and discovered that it felt extraordinarily comfortable as I felt her relax more and more. Dipping my head, I gave her a small kiss on the forehead. It just seemed to be a natural thing to do, but perhaps it surprised Cindy, and she raised her head to look up at me, and I found myself still kissing her, but this time full on the lips. It should have been just a peck, but it lingered just a second or two too long for that. We stared at one another for the briefest of moments, then Cindy offered her lips up to me again, our second kiss becoming more and more passionate as she wriggled her gorgeous slender body up against me, and I responded in the only way I could. The straps of her dress slipped off her shoulders, and I confirmed my earlier suspicions that she had nothing on underneath. We cuddled up together, swapping tongues. It had happened. I hadn't meant it to, but it had. I'm sorry, Cindy, I whispered to her, but without letting go of the lovely handful I still held. I didn't mean this to happen. Oh, Rich, she moaned, and responded to my kisses even more passionately than before. I was in a quandary. Yes, of course, I wanted to get her into my car. But what would that have made me? Thoughts of my wife's behavior scanned through my mind, and feelings of uncertainty, guilt even, started to engulf me. I think we had better pull your dress up, Cindy, I suggested. Yes, Rich. Thank you. I think we should, she answered, but made no immediate effort to hide her chest from my gaze or my touch. Then it was over. Just like that. Cindy stepped back from my arms, stood there with a nervous smile on her face. Thank you, Rich, she repeated. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, I confirmed, already half regretting having stopped. I'd better be getting back to Tom, she muttered. He'll want to know what happened. What will you tell him, Cindy? I don't know, she replied. Whatever he wants to hear, I suppose. I'll make it up. We looked at one another, Cindy, maybe wondering what it might have been like if we'd met before Tom came along. I know I was. Can I see you again? I asked. I'm not sure, Rich, she replied. It might be best if we didn't. It's not going to end here, Cindy. Tom isn't going to stop, you know. He's not going to suddenly change. I know, she sobbed, tears yet again running down her cheeks. I'll just have to deal with it somehow. At least give me your telephone number, I pleaded. Maybe I could help. I can't, Rich, Cindy told me. I daren't, but perhaps if you give me yours. And that's how we left it. I gave her my number, and after one last kiss, she turned on her heels and went back towards the bar entrance, leaving me stood there feeling so hopeless and alone. One last look back, a sweet smile, and she was gone. Gone forever out of my life. With sadness, I got into my car top drive home. I had my own problems back there to confront. We can't keep going on like this. Not sure if it was a question or a statement, but either way my wife was right. Life at home was A-B, with the pair of us carefully avoiding the other one. Neither prepared to take the first step. We no longer even shared the same bedroom, and she only begrudgingly cooked me any meals. Okay, I agreed. What do you have to say about your behavior? Don't you dare talk to me as if I was a little schoolgirl, Corinne reacted angrily. I've told you over and over again that I didn't let any of them have it with me. So what do you call what I saw you doing the other night then? I demanded heatedly. Letting other men kiss you and grope you. Acting more like a WH than my wife. Damn you, Rich, she spat at me. You're so goody-goody. What's wrong with me having a bit of fun if it doesn't do you any harm? I'm a little housewife all the bloody week. So why can't I let my hair down from time to time? So I let some guys feel up my chest. So what? I like it, and they like it, and you're none the worse for it. I've never held back on you when you've wanted to make love. Our sensible discussion seemed to be deteriorating somewhat. There may have been some logic there somewhere, but for the life of me I couldn't see it. So you think it's okay for you to let other men use my wife's body to get their thrills, do you? Yes, why not? Corinne almost screamed at me. It's my damn body, and I'll choose who gets to feel it and who doesn't. You haven't been much good to me lately, so if you don't like it, then you can go to hell. What if I acted like you, Corinne? I questioned her, trying to keep my temper in check, trying to reason with her, trying to make her see sense. How would you feel if I went out and made out with some girl that I picked up in some pub? You. Corinne smirked at me. You with another woman. You wouldn't have the guts, you pathetic wimp. If another woman hit on you, then you'd run a mile. That one hit home, didn't it? Memories of the previous evening flooded back to me as I remembered how wonderful it had felt to hold another beautiful young woman in my hands. I thought about telling her about it to shock her, but I didn't, and I kept my mouth shut. I think that was the correct decision, and that still left me the innocent party. Not that I felt what I had done compared in any way with Corinne's behavior, or her attitude for that matter. I don't think this conversation is getting us anywhere, Corinne, I informed my irate wife, attempting to calm the situation down. Bloody right it isn't, you spineless loser, my wife shouted at me, having completely flipped her lid. I'm going out with Judy again tonight, and I might give you something to really worry about. Now look, Corinne, but it was no use, as she turned angrily on her heels and stomped off back to her bedroom, slamming the door so hard that the whole house shook to its foundations. Oh dear, what a do. I went and poured myself one of my special cognacs and sat down in my favorite armchair to wait and see if Corinne would calm down. I really had no idea what she would actually do. I really doubted whether I even knew my wife anymore. Don't wait up for me, Rich, Corinne said spitefully as she came back down the stairs. I might come home tonight and I might not. I looked up to try to reason with her and got a shock. Corinne, my wife was dressed up like some. If I thought the dress she had worn the other evening had been revealing, then what she had on then was close to disgusting in my eyes. 4 or 5-inch, red, high heels. A tight, black miniskirt, so short that it barely covered her, and what it must have revealed at the back I could only guess at. A skimpy white blouse that was slashed halfway down to her waist. Not that it made much difference as it was near see-through, and her large chest were clearly evident. You look like a PR. I told her sadly. I won't be selling it tonight, honey. I'll be giving it away, she taunted me, her eyes glaring with unsuppressed rage. Here, let me show you what I'll be out there offering them. With that, she lifted the front of her tiny skirt and stood there bearing her at me. See, no underwear. Do you think I'll get many takers? Go and put your underwear on, Corinne. I tried to reason with her. You can't go out like that. You'll get RP? Go to hell, you bastard. They won't have to RP me. I'll be offering. Corinne continued to stand there, teasing me, her skirt still held up almost to her waist. I suddenly felt very calm. Don't know why or how, but I did. If you go out dressed like that, and with that attitude, Corinne, I told her in a steady voice, we're finished. Our marriage is over. I won't be here when you get back. Stuff you, Rich, she continued to shout at me. You've held me back for years, and now it's my turn to go and have some fun. I'll kiss who I want and maybe even F who I want, and you can't do a thing about it. Looking up at her, I wondered where the love had gone in our life. Till a short time ago, this woman had been the apple of my eye, and I would have done anything for her. I'd loved her to distraction. I wondered when she had stopped loving me, as I couldn't believe she did anymore, and I simply couldn't understand the contempt that she now seemed to hold me in. Okay, Corinne, I said, determined to take the wind out of her sails. Off you go then. Have a good time. Mind how you cross the road. What do you mean by that, Rich? Corinne responded, her mouth gaping open, maybe realizing that she pushed me too far. Is that all you've got to say? No, just one more thing, Corinne, I added. Why don't you piss off? Having said that, I stood up and walked into the kitchen, not for any reason other than effect. I leant on the sink, sighed deeply, and waited to see what she'd do, half dreading that she might actually come after me to apologize. But no, she must have thought about it though, as it was a full 5 or 6 minutes later that I heard her high heels clicking on the parquet of our hallway, then the slamming of the front door. I'd have to get the foundations checked out if she kept that up much longer. That was it. Finished. Packing a bag took longer than I thought, but within an hour I was out of there and in my car, heading for a nearby hotel where I knew my company had an account, and it didn't take me long to book in. I only took the one night, as I honestly had no idea what my plans would be for the next few days, never mind the future. It still didn't make sense that I had left home. Why me? About an hour later my mobile phone rang, and I flipped it open to see that Corinne was ringing me. I wondered whether to respond or not, but I had to face it sooner or later. Hi Corinne, what do you want? Where the hell are you, Rich? I've come back home and you're not here. I said I wouldn't be. It was your choice, Corinne. Now don't be silly, Rich. Where are you? When are you coming home? No time soon, Corinne. Have a good night's sleep and maybe we'll talk in the morning. Now wait on Rich, I want. But I'd cut the connection and turned the phone off. The silly cow had thought twice about her actions and gone home to make it up with me. Or maybe she couldn't find any strange men to hang out with and given up. How did I know? I'd let her sweat on it overnight. I went to work the following morning, and of course I couldn't just switch my work phone off. By 10 o'clock Corinne had rung me 4 times, and I ran out of excuses for my secretary, so I spoke to her and promised to see her at home after work the evening. Can't say as I was looking forward to it. I'm sorry, Rich. I shouldn't have walked out on you like that last night, she greeted me, approaching me with her arms held out. And I certainly shouldn't have talked to you like that. Well, I didn't fall for that this time, and as she walked towards me I sidestepped and went the other side of the sofa. She looked crestfallen. We have to talk about this, honey, she carried on, following me round the room. I think you've got this all out of context. It's not as serious as you think it is. Letting other guys feel your chest up isn't serious then, Corinne, I challenged her. I've told you, Rich, she replied, avoiding my question. I haven't let any of them have it with me. No one but you has F me since we were married. I suppose a few of them have got their hands inside? That caught her out. She hesitated, maybe wondering whether to lie or not. But fair play to her. She came clean more or less. 1 or 2 of them have maybe, Corinne eventually admitted, unable to meet my eye. Okay, Corinne, I demanded. What was it? Was it 1 of them or 2 of them? She just looked at me dumbfounded, not knowing what to say. Well, 1 or 2? I pushed her. And exactly how many times each? Well, maybe it was a bit more than 2, honey. But I didn't let that happen very often, I promise you. So we're talking 20 or 30 different fingers up your maybe, rather than 1 or 2, are we? She wasn't enjoying this line of conversation and tried to change the subject. I toyed with her a little, then let her have her way. How are we going to get over this, Rich? I allowed her to ask at last. I don't want to live without you, and I'm sure you still love me as well. Funny way of wording her comment there, but I chose to ignore it. What did you have in mind, Corinne? I asked. If you come back home, honey, then I'd be prepared to compromise, was her first offer. I'd go out less and wouldn't perhaps dress like I have been. I simply sat there and looked at her in silence. How does that sound, honey? She almost whined. Do we have a deal? So you'll only be getting some stranger's fingers once a fortnight then, rather than once a week. Is that what you're offering me? Don't be so crude, Rich, she shot back at me, an angry look creasing her face. I promise I won't let anyone do that to me from now on. I'd had too much to drink and I admit that was going a bit too far. And the chest? I carried on. Are they still public property like before? No, Rich. I promise you I'll be more careful. How about you don't go out with Judy at all? I suggested, clinging on precariously to the hope that we might be able to work this out. Or if you do, then you go to a restaurant or the cinema or something. Christ, Rich, she flew back at me. Don't you trust me or something? Can't you allow me any slack to go out and have a bit of fun? She just didn't get it, did she? Go out and have all the fun you want, dear, I replied quietly. I'll move back into the spare room, and you can do what you damn well want. End of conversation. Why the hell should I be the one to move out of our home when it was her that was in the wrong? End of marriage, as like as not as well, but I don't think Corinne quite realized that at the time. Our life together continued much as before, and if anything a little bit better. At least we talked to one another, and my meals were not handed to me as if they were poison. Corinne even did my washing again. That Wednesday, she didn't go out with Judy. What a fine wife she was turning out to be. A week later, I was at work and my mobile rang, indicating a number that I didn't recognize. "Hi, Chris here," I answered. "Hello, Chris there," came a woman's voice. "It's Cindy. Can we talk?" Oh, crikey. I wouldn't say I'd forgotten Cindy, or how nice she'd felt in my arms for that matter, but I'd more or less assumed that I'd never hear from her again. My life was already difficult enough without her problems to add to them. "Of course we can, Cindy. How can I help? Is everything okay?" "Okay, so I'm AS for a pretty woman in distress. It's a bit cheeky rich," she went on. "But can I ask you a favor, please?" Why do women do that? Why do they ask if they can ask you for a favor? If you say yes, then you've already half agreed to what they want from you, I suppose. "Course you can, Cindy," I replied. "What's up?" "Told you I was AS. It's Tom, my husband," she told me. The story I spun him about what we got up to the other night has kept him happy for a while, but he's been pressing me to go another step further. How much further? Was that a silly question, or what? "He wants to watch me have it with another man," she blurted out, her embarrassment obvious even over the phone. "Now hang on there, Cindy." I started to protest, but she interrupted me. "No, Rich, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not asking for that. I wouldn't do that." I told him that I'd go off and do it with another man and tell him all about it. It's not what he really wants, but it'll keep him off my back for a while till I decide what to do. "So what exactly do you want from me, Cindy?" "I was hoping that you might meet me somewhere public where he could see me going off with you and assume the worst. You could go off straight afterwards if you don't want to hang around with me, and I'd go to the pictures or something, then go home later on my own with some story." I thought about it. Poor cow. Why did some women have to put up with guys like that? She sounded desperate and was probably worried about him bringing his pals back to force her into it. What would she do in the longer term? "How about I take you to dinner, Cindy?" I found myself offering. No point in spoiling an evening. She seemed quite pleased with my response. So, I chose a Wednesday, quite deliberately, as I knew Corinne would be off out with Judy. She left early in a very good mood, even making the effort to give me a peck on the cheek. At least she was dressed fairly soberly, though of course that is how she'd been leaving the house before I had caught her the previous time. "I won't be late, honey," she called out to me. "You'll see that this isn't going to hurt you in any way." She smiled at me. I smiled back. She still just didn't get it, did she? She'd hardly even noticed that I'd got ready to go out as well, and I left soon after her. "Hi, Rich," a voice greeted me as I looked round the bar. Bloody hell. Cindy had looked good the first time I'd met her, but as I stood there looking at her that evening, I was gobsmacked. She wasn't just pretty, she was beautiful, and wearing a simply wonderful little blue dress. "You look different tonight," I told her. "I dressed for a man I like a lot tonight," she informed me, grinning. "The other evening, I was there under protest." "Well, you look beautiful, Cindy," I told her. "It will be my pleasure to take you out tonight." With that, I leant forward to kiss her on the cheek, but she grabbed me and gave me a lovely full kiss on the lips. "Wow," I responded when we came up for breath. "That was for Tom's benefit," she told me, indicating cautiously behind her. "But if you really believe that, then you're a fool." Surreptitiously, I glanced behind her and spotted blue shirt. Except that evening he was brown jumper, just didn't sound the same. "Let's have another one for his benefit," I suggested. And this time we closed up and I remembered how wonderful her slender body had felt up against mine. "Super. Let's go," I ventured, having slaked my immediate thirst. "Where to?" she asked with a twinkle. "Does it matter?" "No," Cindy replied, suddenly serious. "Anywhere you want to go, then I'll follow." Sounded like she was going to jump on the back of my trusty steed and ride off into the sunset with me, but actually we walked about 100 yards down the high street to an Italian restaurant that I had booked earlier. Not quite so romantic, but nonetheless very nice, and we had a lovely meal with a bottle of Chianti, and talked and chatted together like old friends. Could you believe it? I'd found a girl who supported the Arsenal, the best football club in the world. Her whole family were born and bred Arsenal fans, so what was there more to say? We were having the time of our lives and moved on to a bar that had recently opened in town, where I found myself dancing with the most beautiful girl in the room. What could be more idyllic, and what could go wrong? You guessed it. In walked my wife Corinne with Judy and a group of male hangers-on. She had the same dress on, but had hitched up the skirt by maybe 6 inches and undone half the buttons down the front. I looked at Corinne and then at Cindy and wondered what I had ever seen in my wife. She was pretty, yes of course she was, but in terms of class and style, she simply wasn't in the same league as Cindy. Time to confess to Cindy, not easy. We hadn't even discussed whether I was married or not. "What's up, Rich?" Cindy asked me before I had even said anything to her. "The woman over there with that group," I told her. "Unfortunately, that's my wife." "The redhead or the SL-looking one?" Cindy asked, apparently quite genuinely. Ouch, I wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of her. "Yes, the blonde," I admitted reluctantly. "Poor you," she commented without taking her eyes off Corinne. "How did a nice guy like you end up with a SL like that?" If a guy had said that to me, then I would probably have slugged him even then, but coming from Cindy, I just gulped silently and kept my mouth shut. "You know the reputation she's got around the town, I suppose?" Now that comment from Cindy caught my attention. "You know her then?" I had to ask. "No, but my bloody husband Tom does," Cindy said accusingly. "And he wants me to act like her." Oh dear, what a small world. Perhaps Corinne hadn't been telling me the whole truth after all. "Does she F around then?" I nervously asked, feeling a fool for having to ask my date about my own wife. "Is the Pope a Catholic?" She answered. Under the circumstances, it wasn't funny, and Cindy apologized. I briefly explained my situation to Cindy, and the look in her eyes said it all. We both had our problems, didn't we? But I for one wasn't sure what to do about it. "Come on," Cindy said, dragging me up from the chair, and before I knew it, she was propelling me over towards the group around Corinne and Judy. "Hi, gang," cried out my date for the evening, standing in front of the lot of them. They all looked round, and if any of them recognized her, then none of them showed it. The only sure thing was that she totally outshone the 2 other women. "Maybe you know Rich," she boldly introduced me. "You 2 girls want to find out what a real man's like instead of messing around with these wasters." Well, that set the cat among the pigeons, didn't it? And for a moment I thought I was going to have a fight on my hands. I was up for it, but I hadn't reckoned with Cindy, had I? "Corinne," she called out to my wife, who stood there dumbstruck, staring at the 2 of us. "If you're not going to appreciate him, then I will." With that, she flashed a smile at the lot of them, kissed me full on the lips, then took my arm and waltzed me out of the pub. I could feel the exaggerated sway of her hips as she walked alongside me, and my last view of my wife was of her stood there, her mouth gaping wide open in shock as pandemonium broke out around her. Golly, what a laugh. We'd no sooner got back to the car, laughing our heads off, than Cindy's phone rang, and I listened to a one-sided conversation. "Yes, hello, Tom. I'm busy. What do you want?" "No, Rich isn't here at the moment, so we can talk if we must." As she said that, she looked up and winked at me. "Yes, I'm probably going to F him." She winked at me again. What the hell did that mean? "No, I'm not bringing him home so that you can watch." "No, Tom, I won't do it." "I don't care what you threaten, Tom. I won't do it." "Well, you bugger off as well, you weird bastard, and don't expect me home tonight." With that, she clicked shut her phone and threw it onto the rear seat. "I never want to go back to him, Rich," she stated with a more confident tone than I had heard from her before. "There's no future there for me." "What do you want to do then, Cindy?" I replied. "'Cause I seem to find myself in the same situation as you." "Is there somewhere we can go?" "Good question. How about Brighton?" I suggested. "Brighton?" Cindy almost squealed in surprise. "You mean Brighton-on-Sea?" "Absolutely," I confirmed, just about as surprised as she was by my spontaneous idea. "I know a great little hotel, and I'm due a few days off work anyway." "Let's go," Cindy decided, and I took the next left, and was soon on the road for that famous resort, where we spent the next 4 days and nights, getting to know one another better, much better. Yes, Corinne and I were divorced within 6 months, and she didn't fight me very much over our divorce settlement. She remarried shortly afterwards, but that didn't last long either. I do believe that she has genuinely come to realize quite what a mess she had made of her life, but also knows that the solution does not lie in my direction. Judy and Neil, well, they plod on, but are no longer friends with Corinne. I see them occasionally, though Neil and I have never really hit it off. Me and Cindy? No, we didn't make it in the long run, 15 years difference in age being a little too much in the end. Not to say that we didn't have a fantastic 9 or 10 months of seemingly constant S, but in the end, I just couldn't keep my end of it up. She's currently dating Jerry, my ex-50-pound friend, but now quite a real pal of mine. Turns out he was more than just the barman and half owned the place, so Cindy should be well looked after. I'm pleased for her. Tom, no idea. He just disappeared off the scene. I thought about introducing him to Corinne at one point, but why the hell should I? Angelica? Of course you don't know about Angelica, do you? Let's just say that I met her at the tennis club I joined in order to get fit, and now she is the love of my life. Along with her delightful 4-year-old daughter Sophie, who I think of as my own a bit more as each day goes by. And not to forget young Rich Jr., my own son, who celebrates his first birthday in a couple of weeks. Life goes on. Who was it that said that?